Successful rental property investors know that profits are made when real estate is bought, not when it's sold. How can real estate investors tell when the deal that they're looking at really makes sense or not? Well, in this video, we'll go through the answer and I'll show you exactly how step by step you can analyze potential real estate deals to see if they're worthwhile for your investment dollars. I'll talk about in detail how a rental property analysis actually works and why cash flow is so critical to your success. And on top of that, I will show you an amazing tool that you can start using today to automate this entire process to make sure your investment dollars are working the absolute hardest for you. In a nutshell, there are 4 key elements that you have to evaluate when doing a rental property analysis. 1, determine the market value of that property. 2, determine the cost of owning that property. 3, research market rents, also known as comparable rents. And 4, estimate the amount of future repairs and maintenance along with upkeep costs that you'll have to bake into your forecast. So once you understand all these 4 elements, the next step is understanding how you can actually make money from rental properties. Essentially, there are 2 ways you make money from rental properties. 1 is through capital appreciation through your equity. As you pay down your mortgage, the market value of your property goes up, so does your equity. And 2, the cash flow that is generated from renters paying you rent, subtract all your upkeep and ongoing costs, and that bottom cash flow, that's the other way you make money on these rental deals. You may have heard of this term cash flow like we've talked about in this video, but may not really know what it actually means. In its most simplest sense, cash flow is the difference between income that comes in the door and the expenses you have to pay or the money that goes out the door. Now, this is a very simplified example of what cash flow is. Accurately and analyzing cash flow is actually a lot more difficult, but it can be made super easy if you are using the right tool, as I'm about to show you in this video. And a lot of the mistakes that I find a lot of beginner real estate investors make is that they're way too optimistic. They will overestimate the rental income and they will underestimate the expenses. And that gives you a very inaccurate picture of your true cash flow because you don't want to lose money on these rental property deals. And that's why it's absolutely critical that you use the right tool to help you analyze and make sense of the data. One thing is analyzing, one thing is making sense of the data. And I'm going to show you exactly that in just a little while. Because when you're putting your money on the line, you don't want to lose it. No one will care more about your money and making you even more money than you will. So the tool we're going to use for this rental property analysis example is called Landlord. I do like the play on the term landlord. And it is an amazing tool that gives you everything you need to invest in a property all in one place. It has a great UI so you can see a dashboard of your portfolio performance, expenses, rent collection, and more. And you can download on your iPhone or Android phone. And the whole point is that managing rental properties can be a lot of work, but you want to simplify that process. And Landlord has one primary goal, making sure your portfolio is working for you. So you can be efficient, you can be proactive, and most of all, you can be aware of what's happening with your rental portfolio so you can make smart decisions. So what makes Landlord so special? Well, it gives you portfolio KPIs. You want a quick dashboard, so instead of digging through the details, you can get an instant summary of the important information right up front. It gives you a portfolio level detail so you can then go into a more granular level detail and see exactly what is happening with your portfolio. And this is the example that I want to show you how to use the deal analyzer to make sure that the potential rental property you're looking at actually makes sense. And last but not least, it also gives you profit and loss tracking ability so you can actually see if you're making money on these rental properties because that is the most crucial element. Are you making money? Because that's why you're investing as a landlord. And best of all Landlord core functionality is free. That means you get data management, you get bookkeeping, you get rent collection, due date alerts. You're looking at the deal analyzer, you're looking at performance metrics. All this functionality is absolutely free and sign up is super simple. So make sure you check out the first link in the description below to sign up right away so you can actually start using this tool. And what you can do is mimic what I'm about to show you in this video. Have this video on one side, use the tool on the other side so you can walk through this example live. Okay, so let's jump right into our tool. So when you sign up and start inputting information from your potential properties or you have actual properties, you will start to see your portfolio performance. You will know exactly how much equity you have, how much cash flow you're receiving on a 12-month basis, and most importantly, how much money you're making on a cash-on-cash return, plus your 12 months gross yield. You'll see important information like due dates, rent collection. You're expected to collect X amount of dollars. Are they coming in? Is it overdue? The breakdown of expenses. What does that profit and loss look like month over month? Your monthly yield. There's so much great information you get just by looking at this one dashboard. Is your portfolio growing? What are the values of your property? What is the loan balance? What is equity? What is rental income? If you want to be a landlord, or if you are a landlord, this is one of the best tools on the market right now that you have to start using right away, because the key to making any business decision, and I can tell you from experience, is having the right data up front. You don't want to spend time digging through the data to see if something makes sense. You want that data right in front of you, visualize, so you can make the right business decisions. And it's super easy to add a property, link bank accounts, track expenses, or analyze deals. So that's what the dashboard looks like up front, but let's take a look at a deeper level. Once you have your properties, you can actually see from a property by property basis the date of purchase, the value of the property, rental income, what your mortgage balance is, what your equity is, what your LTV is, the current interest rates. There's so much great information that you can get just by going through this UI on a property by property basis. And then you can also start to see the tenants. You can start putting in their information. How much rent are they paying? Their contact information. Are they behind on rent? Have they given you a deposit? It just makes tracking your rental property so much easier and so much more automated. You can set up payment schedules to see who's behind, who's paying, who's not paying, how much is overdue. And one neat thing I want to show you if you go back to my portfolio is the ability to do stress tests, especially in today's economic environment. What if they can't make these rental payments? What if the rent you were expecting, maybe at $2,000, goes down to $1,800, goes down to $1,500? How much of your portfolio, how much of your cash flow is at risk? All this type of information, all this type of stats, statistics, reporting, KPIs, sensitivity analysis, these are the information that the big REITs are using. They hire an army of accountants and analysts to make sure that their portfolios are generating money for their shareholders. So what Landlord is doing is taking all that stuff that the big corporations are doing, condensing it, and giving you the keys to be successful for your rental portfolio. So it makes absolute sense to start using this tool, especially if you want to grow and scale your rental portfolio. And it also gives you some amazing automated reports. So you can see a profit and loss summary and tax reporting. So you can see that after taxes, how much you're making. This is the type of information the big REITs, the big corporations, they spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars getting this type of information reporting. And now it's available to you at your fingertips. The next piece I want to dig into is how to actually analyze your rental property. So let's jump right into that. So for this example, I've picked up a random property from House Sigma to showcase how you can start using some of the metrics that you can see here and use it to analyze a rental property. You don't have to use House Sigma. You can use whatever other platform you want, as long as you have some data available to start inputting into their Landlord platform. So for this analysis, I'm going to use 138 Waterloo Street in Waterloo, Ontario as my example property. So a way to get into the portfolio analyzer is go to invest and click on this rental analyzer. Once you click on that, you'll get a screen where you can start inputting information. So for this example, I'm going to start off by inputting information from House Sigma that I need to do my analysis. I have my address. Now let's put in some purchase price details. So when I go back to House Sigma, I can see that this property was listed for $700,000 and it actually sold for just under $650,000. So that's what I'm going to use. And as you can see, as soon as I put in the purchase price, all these metrics started showing up. My cash flow, cash on cash. Now, obviously, these numbers won't make sense right now because all I've done is put in the purchase price. So I have to put in some other details. What is my expected monthly rental? So if I go back to House Sigma, I can get an estimate of what my rental income can look like. The potential rental estimate for this property is $2,800. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. There you go. Now you can see I'm starting to see some positive numbers because I've now put in a purchase price and now income. But that's just half the battle. There's also expenses. The cool thing is that this tool automatically estimates your land transfer tax. So if you're a first-time home buyer, make sure you click on this so you can reflect that in your numbers. Now there's improvement costs, closing costs. So if you click on advanced, you can then estimate the cost of renovations, furnishings, other costs. So let's say I'm going to renovate, put that as another $5,000. Furnishings, I'm not going to rent out this property with furniture, so I'm going to leave this at $0. I'll put maybe another $1,000 as other costs and click on save. Closing costs, maybe I'll have some legal fees. I want to pay $2,500 for legal fees. Are there any appraisal costs, title insurance, property insurance, municipal land transfer tax, or other closing costs? Let's say altogether I'm expected to pay an additional $10,000 altogether for my other closing costs along with legal fees. Hit save. So the more costs I put in, this adapts so I can see, hey, how much am I actually making after I pay for all these expenses? Now, as I said earlier in the video, sometimes it may be better to actually overestimate your expenses. So now you can see what my net annual cash looks like. Maybe I'm underestimating my closing costs. What if I increase that? What if after everything's said and done, I'm expected to pay, so I'm just going to summarize this instead of putting the details. I'm just going to put $25,000 for everything. Maybe these closing costs are a lot more accurate compared to what I'm expected to pay. And that's the beauty of this tool. You can start inputting and playing around with numbers and see in real time what your long-term metrics or your first-term metrics look like. So let's say for this example, I'm going to put 25% down as my cash for this property. And I'll make my deposit about 20%, making my LTV 80% mortgage rate. And I'm actually going to use House Sigma to see what is the mortgage rate that makes sense. So right now, 4.5, you can use whatever the current market rate is for your interest rate. So let's say for this example, I'm going to use 4.5%. Change this to 4.5. So now that I have my LTV, deposit, and mortgage rate, I can start changing what my mortgage term looks like. But before I do that, I want to show you guys one real cool element about this platform. As you can see right now, my mortgage insurance from CMHC is at 0. That's because I'm putting in 20% deposit. What if I lower that? As you can see, as soon as I start lowering it to 13%, 12%, 11%, this automatically changes to calculate for the CMHC insurance. And that's why it's so important to use the right tool that will allow you to automate the processes. The less thinking you have to do, the more time you can spend on actually analyzing the data. So let's change this back to 20%. And my mortgage term will be 25 years. So based on all the information I've inputted so far, my expected monthly mortgage payment is about $2,900, which includes principal and interest. Now let's play around with some of the long-term assumptions. How long am I expected to hold on to this property? 10 years, 11, maybe you want to hold it as short as 5 years. And the last while, real estate has been absolute crazy. Am I expecting this property to go up by 20% a year? Likely not. So I'm going to be conservative and say the annual appreciation of this property, let's say it goes up by 3%. And I'm going to match my annual rent appreciation to inflation and say it makes about 2.5%. And again, you can play on these numbers and adapt them to your situation, increase or decrease as it makes sense for your local area. Because these are just general assumptions. You have to make sure you're doing the right research for your local area. What the rental property in Calgary is like, what the rental property in Vancouver, Edmonton, Halifax, it will differ based on your each city. So you want to make sure you're using the right platform to one, obtain the data. Maybe you do use House Sigma to understand, okay, what is my local market? Because that will heavily influence what you input into a platform like this. Next, I'm going to play with my operating expenses. Let's say I have an agent that manages this property and they will charge me about 10%. So I'll leave that as is. What about landlord insurance, maintenance, utilities? For this property, I'm going to assume that utilities are covered by the tenants, and maybe I'm paying about $100 a month for anything over top. And let's say for maintenance, I'm going to put in $50 per month on the side. Now that doesn't mean I'm actually going to pay $50 every month, but I'm going to allocate $50 a month so when maintenance does come up, like they need a new fridge or a new stove or some new item that's broken, I have a pool of cash that I can access. And if I go back to House Sigma, I can see that the property tax that's estimated for 2022 is around $3,000, and it matches the 0.5% that I'm using. And honestly, that's really it. It just takes a handful of inputs to really start estimating what your return looks like. But as you can see, the first year is absolutely horrific. I'm expected to lose about $900 every single month. That means my cash on cash return for the first year is actually at a negative 6.58%. If you don't know what any of these metrics are, the cool thing about this platform is that they have this little floating eye that you can click on or just hover your mouse over and it'll give you even more detail on what this measure is. So let's say you don't know what a cap rate is. So I'm going to hover over. A cap rate is for prospective properties. The cap rate is calculated by dividing the first year net operating income by the purchase price. And on a long-term basis, even though my first year does not look great, but at least over the long term, my return on this property is close to 150%. That means my actual rate of return is 8.3%. I have multiplied my equity by 2.49 by holding it for 10 years. I have made close to $500,000 in equity. I put in $166,000, and that equity, fast forward 10 years, is worth close to $500,000. Let's say if I'm targeting a 7% return or an 8% return, how long do I have to hold this property to get an 8% return? As long as I hold it for, if I hold this property for 7 years, I can meet my target of earning 8% from this property. And that's the really cool part about having a cash flow tool like this. You can input your expenses, see what your cash flow looks like. Maybe you have a target return. What numbers do you have to achieve in order to hit your target? The whole point of this video was to show you that analyzing rental properties does not have to be complicated. Yes, the math and the cash flow, all that behind the scenes stuff can get complicated if you're doing it manually. If you're punching numbers into a calculator, if you're punching numbers into Excel, yes, it can be overly complicated. That's why having the right tool that simplifies the process for you, so you can make the business decisions based on the numbers you're seeing. And that's why I highly recommend that before you invest in anything, whether it's a stock or whether it's rental properties in this case, doing the right cash flow analysis is super critical. Because when you do the right analysis, when you have the right data, you can reduce or at least maybe even eliminate the risks associated with that investment. And by doing this type of analysis, it will give you even greater confidence that are you making the right decision? If this property is continually expected to be cash flow negative, maybe you don't want to get into this property. Maybe you start looking at other properties, other regions, other cities, so you can make the right decision. And doing an analysis like this also gives you some scenarios that you can plan for. What if this goes wrong? Or what if this goes right? Can I still make money if I have to pay so much more in repairs and maintenance than I'm originally expecting to? Because as the investor, you want to maximize your profit and optimize your money for the type of investment you are going into. And if you use a tool that I just showed in this video by Landlord, you can make that analysis a lot more accurate, a lot more timely, be more confident in the numbers, so you can make sure you're making the right decision. Thank you so much for watching. Hoping you had some meaningful takeaways from this video. Now you feel more confident about analyzing cash flow for rental properties and how quick and efficient you can be if you're using the right tool. If you want to start using Landlord right away, make sure you use the first link in the description of this video. That's it for now. I'll talk to you in the comments section.